Breaking. President Donald Trump signs an executive order aimed at curtailing gender transitions for everyone under the age of 19. See, once again, going after any of the broader agenda items that at least are, in the eyes of like the broadest subsect of the population, seemingly defensible.
The president also moved to put his mark on the U.S. military, removing diversity measures and putting transgender troops on notice in a way that seems to go further than he did in his first term. Ed O'Keefe has that part of the story.
And last night, President Trump signed a series of executive orders, including one calling on the Pentagon to begin pushing out transgender troops.
I want to thank you all.
A movie previewed earlier in the day.
To ensure that we have the most...
Dude, every day is just worse than the last. This is crazy.
Lethal fighting force in the world. We will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone.
Trump had already revoked protections for transgender service members implemented by former President Biden. And the new executive order argues transgender people cannot satisfy the rigorous standards necessary for military service.
When we hear this executive order saying that we're not worthy of service, it is unnerving. It's disheartening to hear.
Transgender Army veteran Layla Ireland served 12 years, and her husband, Logan, is also transgender. He served in the Air Force for more than 14.
And when you're out on the battlefield, and let's say you have rounds coming down range, and you don't know if you're going to be here in the next couple minutes, when you see that medic coming to get you, you don't care what their gender is. You don't care if they're transgender.
Reporting for his first day as Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth stood by Trump's new orders.
The lawful orders of the President of the United States will be executed inside this Defense Department swiftly and without excuse.
Another new Trump executive order reinstates the roughly 8,200 service members discharged for refusing to comply with the Pentagon's COVID-19 vaccine mandate, restoring their rank and providing back pay.
I think we're going to have a lot of people that join.
The Biden-era mandate was rescinded in early 2023, and only about 110 of those kicked out have since rejoined. Trump is also ordering the Pentagon to start developing an Iron Dome system over the USA. It's modeled on the air defense system that keeps most missiles fired at Israel.
This is my favorite one. Like, okay, in a sea of like horrific actions that they're taking, the one where they're like, we're going to do our own Iron Dome, that one is awesome because there's so many different reasons why it's awesome. One, the Iron Dome is only good for, bathtub rockets that a captive population are making with like unexploded ordnance that Israel uses, right, in Gaza. And, some other traffic materials too, but ultimately, obviously, the Iron Dome can't do anything against like nukes or more serious firepower. That's number one. Number two, Israel is much smaller as far as area surface than the United States of America, obviously. And therefore, it is easier to cover Israel with the Iron Dome. Number three, the notion that the greatest threat to American lives and American safety is going to be like rockets coming in from Canada or Mexico, and not the fact that, the Trump administration is doing a full-scale federal freeze. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what do you think is more damaging, dude? Just having for-profit healthcare or rockets? Like, what do you think kills more Americans every year? I genuinely think Trump thinks that the Iron Dome is also like a dome. Like a physical dome. I don't know why, but I have this belief. I have this suspicion that Trump actually thinks that there is an actual dome, a physical one, and that it would be cool to build that on top of America. Okay?
From ever hitting targets.
We protect other countries.
Yeah, we do have a pretty robust, we have an Iron Dome in the U.S. called the nuclear warheads aimed at their heads. Yes. Also, we have a fairly robust, missile system regardless. Not only are we sheltered in the United States of America because we're so far away from any sort of foreign adversary that could provide any sort of foreign adversary that could be an immediate threat. Okay. We also have interception systems anyway. Like we just have, it's just so stupid, which is why I think it's funny. It's like, great. Yeah. Do the Iron Dome, man. That seems like a great idea.
But we don't protect ourselves.
And in another move on Monday, more than a dozen Justice Department officials who worked on special counsel Jack Smith's investigations of Trump were fired. The spokesman tells CBS News the acting attorney general, quote, didn't believe they could be trusted to faithfully implement the president's agenda. Tony, lots of
Ed, thank you very much.
In Washington.
Yeah, that's for sure, Ed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Look at Chicago. It looks a little different under Donald Trump. Go to the south side, and the streets are more empty than usual. There's a reason for that. They're calling Chicago ground zero for migrant arrests, a city targeted first in Trump.
What the hell is this? Scoop, Trump offering buyouts to all federal workers? Bro's running it like it's an Amazon distribution facility. What is happening right now, dude? What? The White House will issue a memo Tuesday offering to pay federal workers who don't want to return to the office through September 30th, as long as they resign by February 6th. An acceleration in President Trump's already unprecedented purge of the federal workforce. The government-wide email being sent today is to make sure all federal workers are on board with the new administration's plan to have federal employees in office and adhering to higher standards. We're 5 years past COVID and just 6% of federal employees. Oh, they're doing a buyout. They're doing a buyout package if you don't want to, if you can't basically return to the office, because that's the real problem here. It's not that people don't want to return to work. It's that some people simply can't because they moved, right? So basically, Trump is using this as an opportunity to cut federal employees. Many were hired remote station too. Yeah, great. The administration projects the buyouts could ultimately save taxpayers up to $100 billion a year.
Trump's deportation drive.
It's never this quiet. Usually people are always walking up and down.
In this Hispanic neighborhood, they tell the migrant story of a community kept indoors and their streets emptied. People retreating to the shadows for fear of what they're calling here collateral arrest.
My mom, she's scared to come out, and if anything, if she does get deported and everything, it's gonna be really hard.
She's just scared to go out there. She has more anxiety going out there. It's like I was saying, that she might get picked up somewhere else from work or around where we're living.
They don't normally keep the gates shut at this migrant support center.
We're noticing pickup trucks. They're using a lot of different cars that you can't tell whether or not they're, ICE agents, whether they're, police.
This is an open house for immigrants in the area, but immigration raids have altered the routine. Here we met Oliver. He came to America from Venezuela, has a work permit, and has been working in construction. Not currently.
There are rumors about migrants, and I'm scared that they might catch me, deport me. My family depends on me.
Here in New York City this morning, we are getting the dirt bags off these streets.
This was Kristi Noem, America's new Secretary of Homeland Security. She joined a migrant raid in New York. They are expanding the map. U.S. immigration enforcement has been publishing totals for the arrests that they're making. The figures are up on the daily average during Joe Biden's final year. It's the measure that matters in government by numbers. It is applauded by much of America, the crackdown and its choreography. Not so much in the community's center stage.
This morning, an escalating crackdown nationwide on illegal immigration. Federal officers on the move in major cities. Newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in New York.
Is there anything positive to talk about? No. Yeah, the federal funding freeze has been temporarily blocked by a federal judge, by the way. So I guess there's that. I made my first successful slingshot. Is that positive? Yes. Yeah, this is day 8 of the Burger Reich, and this is where we're at. Day 7 of the Burger Reich saw massive, a fairly sizable downturn for the stock market due to revelation from China. Day 8 is full-scale funding freeze that has now been frozen by a federal judge, at least for the time being. So I suspect that they'll issue, what is it called, like an injunction to force these programs to operate, at least in the interim period. Yeah, there's a block on the funding freeze. So they froze the funding freeze, yes. Oh, my Lord.
Watching this arrest just this morning. How busy has this been over the past week?
Busier than we've seen in a while.
The number of daily arrests rising. A senior administration official telling NBC News ICE arrested nearly 1,200 undocumented immigrants in one day. Roughly half had questioned to being in the country illegally.
If somebody is here illegally, whether or not they've committed, crimes, there is that possibility that they could be, arrested.
We saw one enforcement operation firsthand in Chicago. We're now heading to the northwest part of the city. Yesterday, they couldn't find one particular 25-year-old from Mexico with a lengthy criminal history. But this morning, a surveillance team has just seen him at work, and that's where we're going. Agents move in, arresting Christopher Lara from Mexico. ICE says he has a criminal record, including convictions for home invasion and aggravated battery.
This is the one that's coming in.
NBC News also getting rare access to an ICE processing center, where we found Lara arriving in handcuffs. He denies the charges against him, saying he deserves a second chance.
I went to school my whole life here, from preschool all the way to my senior year.
He says if he's deported back to Mexico, he'd leave behind a 5-year-old daughter.
He does have serious charges and convictions. So I understand he has a daughter, and that's unfortunate, but we still have a job to do, and we still have to follow the law.
Meanwhile, after a brief feud with Colombia over accepting deportees, President Trump now threatening tariffs for any country that gets in the way of his mass deportation effort.
We've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back our people that we're sending out, the criminals.
But for the families left behind, it is agonizing. This woman's father was just arrested. He's lived here many years, she says. It breaks my heart.
Meanwhile, some new developments at the U.S. southern border. These are some tense moments in Starr County, Texas. This is drone video released by the Texas Department of Public Safety. Authorities say that cartel members trying to escape Mexico fired on U.S. Border Patrol agents and were eventually taken into custody. Again, Craig, here in New York, there are new arrests happening just this morning.
As
Craig.
we speak. All right, Gabe Gutierrez for us, just a few blocks from here. Gabe, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day.
Oh, my God.
One more, just following up on that,
very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump.
Okay. Yeah. They've also... Breaking. President Donald Trump signs an executive order aimed at curtailing gender transitions for everyone under the age of 19. See, once again, going after any of the broader agenda items that at least are, in the eyes of like the broadest subsect of the population, seemingly defensible. Okay? Because this is one of those policies that's like, I think it's fucking ridiculous. Okay? And the reason why I think it's ridiculous is because you're just basically deciding wholesale the denial of medical care, a specific type of medical care that you don't personally like, to a genuinely minuscule percentage of the population, and you're basically interfering in the affairs of medical professionals and their patients. In many respects, it is no different than the abortion stuff. Okay? Just so you understand. That's it. This is stuff that like doctors are deciding is the best possible thing to do. Medical intervention that doctors have decided is a necessity. that that the government says, no, I don't care. I don't want you to do it because I don't like it because it's icky to me. Also, gender affirming or gender transitions of this sort is not like bottom surgery or anything like that. Okay, there's morality on both sides of this argument. No, there isn't. What are you talking about? Probably should be 18. Should be 18, dude. This is what I mean. This is literally the same kind of this is the same exact principle behind, like, well, I kind of understand abortion. Like, at a certain what, you're literally like climate deniers. You believe the bottom of 1% doctors. You are insane. You think the medical community's consensus on this is on your side? Do you know what gender affirming care means? It doesn't mean like doing bottom surgeries, you fucking weirdo. It means offering puberty blockers or hormone blockers after a tremendous amount of medical consultation. Okay? Cis girls and cis boys in certain instances have gotten more complex medical procedures done as minors than what we are talking about. Okay? You just don't like it because it's trans people and you're like weirded out by it and you think it's gross. I am not a medical expert. Okay? I'm not. You know, I've read some data on this matter, obviously, in terms of like why medical experts seemingly think this is a appropriate measure to take. Okay, and 99% of medical experts disagree with it, which is why hospitals do it anyway. Yeah, that's crazy to think like, oh yeah, hospitals are doing like gender affirming care for minors after a tremendous amount of medical consultation. But honestly, they're just doing it because they're being forced to do it by the woke Brandon administration, and not because they have a duty to care. Yeah, it's even just like surgery for gynecomastia in young men. People are clueless. These things should be left to kids, their families, and their doctors. Leave the government out of it. I know. Yeah, you know dumbass shadows before you speak up. Know what you're talking about, but hey, that's why you're being a bigot. Like, yeah, sorry. No like breast augmentation surgery, even if you have even if they caught you with cancer at a super early age. You know, if you have PCOS, you can't get hormone blockers. Sorry. The government has decided that, you know, you can't have that. Also, this is just the beginning, okay? Like, first they started with transgenders are playing sports in high school, and that's unacceptable. And there's like more politicians that vote to ban trans athletes in all the way up to collegiate level sports than there are trans athletes in the country. Okay, that's how tiny of a percentage it is. Now they're moving into curtailing gender transitions for everyone under the age of 19, which is an interesting choice because 18 means that you can consent to making medical decisions on your own regardless. But I guess that's not, that's neither here nor there. Nobody cares about that. Okay. And eventually they're just going to ban it altogether. That's the goal. That's the agenda. They're just moving into it piece by piece as they ease you into it. Okay. They're just easing into the greater desire that they have, which is the wholesale elimination of transgender people from society. Truly terrifying.
Of course, the campaign in 2024 said the following about illegal immigration. He said, they're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no...
What can we do about this is a great question, but I think what's going to end up happening is like states will offer some semblance of protection. You know what I mean? You're just going to have to rely on your states. And I suspect that blue states will offer blanket coverage. And then if you're in a red state, I assume that there will be 501c3s that help you get this, help you get the medical aid necessary. Do you have any intention of returning to the U.S.? I feel like it's necessary, and if it's something you are going to do, that you owe it to your listeners to sound the alarm. Dude, I'm in Japan for 2 weeks, man. I'm not staying here. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm just Japanese now. I don't speak a lick of the language. My entire family, all my loved ones, my dog, everyone is in America, but I'm just going to stay here now. The other part of the problem is like, you know, they'll go after 501c3s too, most likely, and try to prosecute them for, you know, engaging in interstate medical tourism, interstate medical trafficking.
No prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime? It's not criminal.
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking, though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
I mean, the majority of them are not violent offenders anyway, but I do need to understand, I have yet to see comprehensive investigative reporting on the actual details of what these people have done, right? Like, are these charges, are these convictions? Like, if they are convictions, why weren't they processed? If they are serious charges, why were they not detained? That is what I want to know, because a lot of this stuff just doesn't make sense, where they just claim, oh yeah, no, these are super violent criminals that have done like the most heinous crimes, and the government just like let them go, right? And why do they do that? Well, because they're undocumented and the government's woke. Okay, that's not a good enough answer for me. Like, that seems somewhat ridiculous. I'm sure that you believe that, but that's not the criminal justice system I know. You know what I mean?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories.
Just today, ICE says it has made 1,179 arrests. How many of those people had been convicted of crimes in the U.S.?
Look, I don't have exact numbers with me, but I'll give you an example. I was in Chicago yesterday for that operation, and everybody but I think four were collateral arrests. Everybody else was a criminal. And when I walked out at the end of my shift, we already had, I think, 9 Tren de Agua. 2 of them actually being charged with crimes because here's an illegal alien gang member in the United States selling illegal guns in the neighborhood, and they even sold the switches, which turned the gun into fully automatic machine guns. We arrested, I think we had a total of 7 sexual predators, sexual crimes against children. We had 2 illegal aliens convicted of murder that were released by that state prison back to the streets. So everybody we arrested in Chicago yesterday was a significant public safety threat. There were several collateral arrests, so they happened to be there when we arrested the bad guy. So this operation right now is concentrated on public safety threats and national security threats throughout the country.
So the majority of those yesterday did have criminal records, and do you believe the majority of today's numbers have criminal records?
I won't see those numbers till midnight tonight, but again, we're focused on criminals. But I think you and I discussed before, but in sanctuary cities, you're going to see a higher number of collateral arrests. I mean, we're going to have more criminals, but there's going to be a big number, what we call collateral, because when we're forced into the neighborhood to find the bad guy, he's probably going to be with others, and we're not going to instruct ICE agents to ignore their oath, ignore the law. If they're here illegally, they're going to go to jail too, and that's why I'm imploring the sanctuary cities, let us in the jail, arrest the bad guy in the jail where the community's safe, the officer's safe, the alien's safe. You're forcing the community, you're going to get exactly what you don't want.
And
more
when you
agents in the neighborhood and more collateral arrests.
When you say collateral arrest, you mean someone who doesn't have a criminal record but is here is an undocumented immigrant, they still get deported as well, right? You're not letting them go back to their neighborhoods or to their jobs. Is that right?
Yeah, if they're in the country illegally, they're going to get arrested too.
Now that you're officially in your position, you've been here about a week on the job. We spoke to you last before you had actually come in formally to the role. Do you have a better target number for how many people you want to deport overall?
As many as we can. My goal is, I think success is removing every criminal gang member out of this country, every public safety threat, illegal alien out of this country, every child trafficker, illegal alien out of this country. Then that aperture opens, right? We got 1.4 million illegal aliens in this country who had due process at great taxpayer expense. They were ordered removed by a federal judge and didn't leave. They became a fugitive. They're next. So we're going to keep opening that aperture and enforcing immigration law. And I'll implore those in the country illegally, those who don't have a final order, those who have not been ordered by an immigration judge, if you're in the country illegally, you should leave. Because if we have to formally deport you, you can face anywhere from a 5 to 20-year bar from ever coming back, either as a student, a visitor visa, a tourist visa, or be petitioned by a U.S. citizen child. If you're in the country illegally, you haven't been ordered deported, leave and come back the right way, because there will be other opportunities.
You're talking about going after public safety threats, national security threats first, but you just said the aperture is going to widen, meaning the scope of the people you're going to go after. How long do you anticipate before you're in that next phase where the aperture has gotten wider?
People like him are an insult of humanity. I mean, people like him are not human. Like, look at him, dude. He quite literally is barely. He's not even doing a good enough job presenting himself as a human being, to be honest. Just, it's almost an actual orc, exactly.
Very soon. I mean, sanctuary cities are making it very difficult to arrest the criminals. For instance, Chicago, very well educated. They've been educated how to defy ICE, how to hide from ICE.
He's mad that they can't cheat in their Gestapo operations. That there's still like some semblance of rules and restrictions that they must abide by in their dragnet operations, and that's very frustrating for him. Like, oh, they're very well educated. They know the rules that I can't violate the Fourth Amendment. I don't like that. What? I don't know what this is. It sounds like an insane thing.
And I've seen many pamphlets from many NGOs. Here's how you escape ICE from arresting you. Here's what you need to do. They call it Know Your Rights. I call it How to Escape Arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest, and they tell you how to hide from ICE. No, don't open your door. Don't answer questions. Okay, you can call it Know Your Rights all you want, but there's an order for their removal. They've been ordered removed by a federal judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. They need to go. But if we got to play that cat and mouse game, that's what we're going to do till every one of them gone.
In terms of how you're messaging this, obviously you've been speaking publicly. We know that officials were told to be ready to be in front of the cameras. Agents were, that they could be around when these arrests were happening. We saw Dr. Phil was along and embedded with one of your teams. How much thought are you putting into making this kind of a made-for-TV moment in order to publicly message or whatever your strategic goal is here?
Well, look, we got Kristi Noem, which is, she got her vote this weekend. You're going to see a lot more from Secretary of DHS. She'll be out here talking much more. We've the new CBP commissioner who's being nominated, Rodney Scott. He will empower the chief patrol agents to talk. So we want all the frontline managers to talk throughout the country. But the message I'm sending is that
good guy behavior, real good guy behavior. When a law enforcement, member of the law enforcement, federal law enforcement agency is upset that people know their rights, that's when you know someone is definitely a good guy, okay? When they're like, I hate that these people have a decent understanding of the rules and the law, and therefore It makes it much harder for us to do these mass apprehensions. And I hate it. I don't like it one bit. We need to stop educating these migrants so they can be just as stupid as I am. Tom Homan.
We're going to force immigration laws in this country. If people don't like it.
Get over it, libs. This is illegal is illegal. This is the right thing to do. Deport them all. This is coming from a Cuban that his family came over the right way and took advantage of the American dream. If you don't like it, you can easily leave. This stream is trash, by the way. Came over the right way? You mean got blanket amnesty due to political reasons? Wow, man. That's so funny. Okay, yeah. Why don't we make these guys also come over the right way? As in offer them blanket amnesty? Dude, oh God, of course you're Cuban American. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, my family came over the right way, sir. And I definitely don't want that to happen to anybody else, okay?
Like it, then they need to change the law because, you know, ICE isn't making this up. We're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by a president, but we're doing it in a smart way. The Trump administration in the beginning says we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats are out of the gate. The worst first, and that's what we're doing. But like I say, as we go on, you know, we're not going to say it's okay for 1.4 million illegal aliens to ignore a judge's order to deport. So they're going to be next. And we're going to keep opening that aperture up. So we're sending a message. It's not okay to enter this country legally. Is it a crime? And there's going to be consequences.
Do you have a number of how many people you'd like to have deported by this time next year?
I don't have a number. As many as we can arrest and deport.
Okay, but no firm number.
We're going to enforce the law. If they're here in the country legally, they got a problem, and they're not off the table.
Yeah, but on numbers, you have been clear that your success here in this effort will depend on how much money you can get from Congress. Now that you're in this role, do you know how much money, what kind of budget you would need to deport the people that you say are public safety threats, national security threats, and also the 1.2 million that you just referenced there who've gotten orders from a judge?
1.4 million. And yes, like we need more than 100,000 beds. Right now, we got about 34,000 beds. We'll fill them up in a week. So we need at least 100,000 beds. We need more international air flights. We need more ground transportation. We need more money to hire more officers and Border Patrol agents. And that's why we're bringing right now, the whole of government is coming in, right? In the Chicago operation and every operation throughout the country now. We got DEA, we got FBI, we got U.S. Marshals, we got ATF, we got HSI, we got ERO. So right now we're bringing the whole of government into this so we can create more teams and arrest more people. So this dynamic is constantly changing. And depending on the city, is it a sanctuary city or not a sanctuary city?
Yeah, you're using them as like a force multiplier. But when it goes to the real money that you'll need from Congress to get more beds and to hire more agents, if Congress is not reliable, as I'm sure you are well aware in terms of what they can get passed. I know they believe this is a big part of Trump's agenda, but if you don't get what you need from Congress, can you achieve what you're trying to achieve here?
We're going to do everything we can with what we have, and we're going to arrest as many as we can. However, you're right. We can be more successful if we have more money, if we can buy more beds. Because every time we arrest an illegal alien, we just don't deport them that day. We have to detain them for a few days or a few weeks to get travel documents, get landing rights in their home country. So the more money we have, the more we can do.
Mr. Homan, I've got a few more questions for you. If you'll stick around for a few minutes with us, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Mr. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, after a short commercial break. And we're back with President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, whose name came up at the confirmation hearing for the newly confirmed Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem.
I guess I'm uncertain about roles and responsibilities regarding your position and Tom Homan's. How are you going to work with Mr. Homan? What is the division there? I'm trying to get a better sense of who's in charge.
Yeah, Tom Homan is an incredible human being who has over 30 years of experience.
Incredible experience.
Yeah,
I get
at
that.
The border,
I'm just trying to think through
the insight and wisdom.
Decision-making process when it comes to your work. For instance, will he be giving orders directly to CBP, ICE, USCIS?
Tom Homan has a direct line to the president. He is an advisor to the president, the border czar. I obviously will be, if nominated and confirmed, and put into the position of being the Department of Homeland Security Secretary and responsible for the authorities that we have and the actions that we take.
Mr. Homan is back with me. And who is the person who will be issuing those orders, to the senator's question there, to ICE agents, to Border Patrol? Is that your purview here, or is that Secretary Noem's purview?
Secretary Noem has the authority over Border Patrol and ICE. That's in statute. But as the senior advisor to the president, I'm writing strategic vision, operational plans, and coming up with a strategy to secure the border and to run this deportation operation to find over 300,000 missing children. And me and Secretary Noem will work very close on those plans and to implement them and do what the president wants us to do. So me and Kristi Noem will be shoulder to shoulder every day. We talk every day, so we're working together to achieve the president's goals.
How often are you talking to the president himself about this?
Several times a week.
And on one of the things that we've been seeing is you're publicly talking about this first week. You know, I saw the numbers that ICE put out tonight that we started asking you about. We also saw this video last week of something you told me was going to happen using military flights. This is a C-17. It's flying about 80 people back to Guatemala. The flight cost from El Paso for that is about 252,000 numbers based on an estimate we got from the government today. Do you think that's a better use of taxpayer money than a chartered flight, which would cost closer to, I believe, $9,000?
Well, it's a force multiplier. We got a lot of planes flying every day across, mostly to Central America and South America. So they're adding a resource to us. So again, the cost of this operation is expensive. It's expensive to enforce the laws and protect our national security, but I don't put a price tag on securing that border. Once we secure the border, we show consequences. The number is already down.
So they're literally doing the more expensive thing specifically as a show of force. Got it. Also, I will say I'm not particularly excited at how little we're talking about, like, whether or not these people are actually criminals or what their circumstances were, and basically moving on to the next point of contention fairly quickly, which is like the logistical issues. Like, I think that you probably should spend a little bit more time addressing the truth of these claims, and also whether or not we should be doing these mass deportations in general. Like, I feel like that is, at least from where I'm standing, like, when these guys just go, nah, they're just criminals. Oh, they're criminals, FS, for sure. See, that's what I mean. It's like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe I'm wrong, okay? But that just kind of doesn't make sense, that we're just automatic running with the assumption that these are like some of the most dangerous, violent criminals of all time, but then also not recognizing that if that is the case, then there are far larger, more consequential problems that immediately must be addressed in terms of how the local court structure works, like how lower courts work, because that would imply that the lower courts are just straight up letting people go. The excuse yesterday just said all of them are criminals to 30,000 people. Yeah, and speaking of which, Asmongold is...
It shouldn't be a chilling effect unless their child is a terrorist or a public safety threat. If they are a public safety threat and national security threat, they should be chilled. They should be afraid because we're looking for them.
Well, if their parent is here and they're an undocumented immigrant, I think was more of the argument that they were making.
They're not off the table either. I mean, they're in the country illegally, they got a problem. I mean, it's not okay. Look, it's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's a crime. And that's the way it's supposed to be. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm in Switzerland illegally. So we're going to enforce the laws of this country. So, the schools and the churches and central location was a policy only for ICE, only for immigration, right? But national security threats and public safety threats have no safe haven in this country, and we'll go where we got to go.
Have you gone into any schools or churches yet that you know of personally?
Not yet of this operation.
Mr. Tom Homan, thank you for coming and taking our questions tonight. We hope to have you back here on The Source soon, and we do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
More than 100 migrants from Guatemala are now back in their home country. They were on board a U.S. military plane that landed in Guatemala City just yesterday. One of the migrants now tells CNN that he had been living in the United States for nearly 19 years. CNN's David Culver has exclusive new reporting from the tarmac when they arrived.
Stepping off a commercial charter and onto Guatemala City's military tarmac, 124 migrants deported for illegally entering the U.S. Now back home. They process past officials, including the country's vice president, and into a reception hall. Cookies and coffee await. One by one, they're called up to be officially documented. Now that's a change from their status.
The other part of migration in this country is that, like, when I say immigration is the backbone of American society, I fucking mean it, okay? And obviously it's a little silly for me to say this considering, you know, I'm first generation. I'm an anchor baby. Like, fair, you know? But the reason why the United States of America, which gets a lot of things wrong, was able to thrive was because of migration, okay? Yes, it served a settler colonial purpose initially, but the reality of the matter is America was built on migration, whether it be the Pilgrims or whether it be the constant flow of migrants coming into this nation. This is a nation of immigrants. It's like ridiculous. Everyone with the exception of Native Americans is literally a migrant. At a certain point, they migrated here, okay? Not only is it hilariously hypocritical to say, no, we got to kick the ladder down now, but it's also ridiculous because migrants are what built this country, and everyone is a, if you go back far enough, is a migrant or did not live here, right? Let me not just say migrant, because obviously chattel slavery also is you know, something that happened in this country. But migrants are the reason why the United States of America, despite being a developed nation, did not fall into the same issues that many other developed nations have fallen victim to. I am at the heart right now, the epicenter of what happens when you have a fucking developed nation run into population problems because of their xenophobia. I'm in Japan. This is literally the living, breathing example of what happens when you have restrictive immigration policies. Okay? That's why Japan is safe? No, dumbass. Japan is safe because they have no guns. Japan is safe for a million different reasons, and it's not because there are no migrants. What are you talking about? Canada has the same level of migrants or even higher level of migration than the United States of America does, and yet it's much safer than the United States of America. Now, of course, in comparison to other countries, it's not as safe, but Canada is objectively much safer than the United States of America. One must ask the question why. Maybe it has nothing to do with migrants either. Also, it doesn't matter if Japan is safe right now because they're not safe from complete societal collapse. Okay? And that's inevitably where you arrive at when you have an interest in like maintenance of purity. Okay? They're losing their minds out here. They're like, why the fuck are you guys not repopulating? Please repopulate. Not understanding partially the reason for their population numbers diminishing is one, because of a clear lack of migration, but also because they all work all the time. They have an insane work culture here. Same issue with Korea too. Anyway, no, it's the Tenga. It might be low key. Just a crazy situation, man.
That's in the U.S.
10 años en los Estados Unidos. She lived 10 years in the U.S. in Alabama. She did roofing, construction, and car repair while in the U.S.
Here we meet Sara Totpotos. At 43, she says she carries a criminal record related to child endangerment.
She was shopping at Walmart con tu nieto, no?
Sí, con mi nieto.
With her grandson, and she said he didn't have a car seat, and she was pulled over as she was leaving the Walmart by a police officer in Alabama.
She went to jail for 2 months and was detained for 5 more months, she says, by immigration officials in Louisiana before being sent back here. She's actually grateful, thanking God for being back.
Pero tú quieres regresar a los Estados Unidos? Do you want to go back to the U.S.?
No, ya no.
No.
Ya no.
Sara, seemingly uncomfortable though, speaking with us in what she's wearing. She's eager to get to her bag, which sits in a pile of plastic sacks and stapled shut. And as she heads into the bathroom to change, we meet Fidel Ambrosio.
So how many years altogether did you live in the U.S.?
Almost 19 years.
19 years?
Yes. I'm scared, because now the Trump, they say they have to go, go with a criminal, but we're not a criminal,
But you have a trespassing conviction?
Yes.
Are you going to try to stay here? Or do you think you'll go back?
I have to go back, for sure.
You'll find a way back?
Yes.
While Fidel walks freely here, others are pulled aside by Guatemalan police as soon as they arrive, accused of crimes not only in the U.S., but also here in their homeland. They require a lot of resources so as to reintegrate the returnees.
Pues de momento no hay una diferencia.
Guatemala's vice president.
Trespassing and no car seat. I'm glad that Tom Homan is taking out these real rugged criminals, dude. This is surely going to improve crime in this country. We are really tackling the crime rate, man. Thank God we're taking out all the bad guys, dude. Also separating them from their families, too. That's the other thing. I feel so much safer, don't you? I'm glad these heinous criminals have been deported by military planes with chains on their arms as they're perp walked so that the Trump administration can get a W, like a horrifyingly racist W. Gigalib at work. What? I don't know what that means. Did it F a little bit for some people, I guess?
Tells me it's about the same number, though, that have been arriving in recent years under President Biden. Though she says the use of U.S. military planes, which Guatemala is permitting, is new under President Trump. Back in the reception hall, we almost don't recognize her into her indigenous wardrobe and feels more at home, now ready to step out. And reunite with her daughter. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion in that moment between Sara and her daughter, and I asked both of them if they have any interest for Sara to go back to.
He was probably trespassed at a retail store, not some person's house. Oh, no, for sure. I mean, it could be a number of different things. Trespassing is a ridiculous thing to get deported over. Like, think about that. Think about that. Think about how fucking crazy that is. Like, you get hit with a trespass. Like, you are literally, like, getting deported for a trespass is straight up the equivalent of being arrested for jaywalking. Like, it's insane. It's insane. Being thrown in prison for, like, sleeping in your car or some shit. Not the rugged criminals that Tom Homan was talking about, all these, like, rapists and whatnot. Man's been here for 19 years, and all they got him on was a trespass. Trespass also is, like, similar to fare evasion. You know what I mean? It's like one of those, like, minor issues. Trespassing is even worse than that, actually. Never mind. It's not even fare evasion. It's like loitering, okay? It's one of those things that is just in the book so the cops have something to detain you over. Yeah. Do you understand when I say, like, the punishment needs to fit the crime? And this objectively is an instance where there is no punishment that fits the crime. Like, this is abject cruelty.
To the U.S. or for her daughter to go for the first time, and they were adamant. They do not want to go. And it seems that in many ways tends to echo what the Trump administration is hoping to put out there in their messaging from these deportations in part, and that is a deterrence factor to keep people from wanting to go into the U.S. in the first place. However, then you meet others like Fidel, who said it doesn't stop him. He's going to try as many times as possible to get back to the U.S., be it legal or illegal. David Culver, CNN, Guatemala City.
All right, we have brand new video just in to CNN. It was released by Homeland Security Secretary, the new Secretary, Kristi Noem, and it shows her presence at an immigration raid in New York City overnight.
Oh, fantastic.
In her
Thank you.
words, a criminal alien charged with kidnapping, assault, and burglary is now in custody. Again, she put out this video. With us now is former acting director of ICE, John Sandwig. Thank you so much for being with us. This video released by the secretary, the orders that we reported yesterday that people involved in these raids have been told to wear your jersey so people can see. You want this to be very much visible.
God damn it.
Why such a public display, John?
You know, it's very interesting. I mean, first of all, obviously the reason why is I think the administration wants to draw a lot of attention to these raids and these operations. But what's interesting, John, is traditionally you don't want to draw attention to these operations until the operation is complete. And there are two very good reasons for that. The first is officer safety, especially when you're targeting individuals who who should have a nexus to public safety. You don't want to do anything to tip them where they might be lying in wait for an officer, especially if somebody's doing harm. So one of the real cardinal rules of these types of operations is you don't do the publicity until it's complete. But the second reason is it reduces the effectiveness of the operation. As word gets out that you're targeting individuals with a nexus to the criminal justice system, those individuals tend to disappear. So during the Obama administration, when we ran these similar operations, what happens is over time, you start missing more and more of your targets because those individuals are no longer in the location that you expect them because they caught wind of the operation. So surprising in a way from an operational perspective that they're putting this much publicity on these operations, but politically, I think it makes a little bit of sense why they want to do that.
So I think in the last year of the Biden administration, there were an average of about 300 apprehensions each day. It was a slow start in this new Trump administration, but they're now at about 1,000 a day, and that's their target. Besides the difference in the numbers, John, what do you see as the biggest differences in approach between the two administrations so far?
Well, the biggest difference is clearly the targeting. This administration has lowered the threshold for when, prior to one of these operations, a lot of work goes in, John, behind the scenes. The agency is running records from the criminal justice system, probation and parole records, cross-referencing that against immigration databases to try to identify the targets. This is a tactic that was done throughout ICE's history, the Obama administration and the Biden administration included. But what happens is when you're doing that, you set a threshold. What type of crime is a serious crime that we're going to prioritize? Are we going to arrest what we call collaterals, individuals that we encounter when we're going after the criminal who may not have any nexus to the criminal justice system? So the Trump administration has lowered the threshold, including individuals charged with less serious offenses like traffic offenses or people who have not been convicted. Secondly, they've been very clear that when they go to a house, if they find anybody who's undocumented there, everyone will be arrested regardless of whether or not they have any nexus to the criminal justice system.
Well, talk to me more about what you just called collaterals, because Tom Homan said, quote, I don't think we arrested any families. We've arrested public safety threats and national security threats, bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes when you go on these operations, you knock on a door, and you're looking for a certain individual. You may or may not find that individual there, but you often find that someone's living with other undocumented people. So group homes are very common, where you have multiple families living in the same house, or you might find that person's family unit there. Traditionally, during the Obama administration, we would direct ICE that unless the individual you encounter has a nexus to public safety, you don't take them into custody. This administration has been clear they are arresting collaterals. John, look, in the coming weeks, we're going to see the data related to who was arrested in these raids. And it'll be very interesting to see what types of crimes the people were arrested for and how many individuals were arrested without a nexus to any criminal history at all. Just knowing how ICE operations work, knowing the limited number of high-value targets that there are, I'm very confident that we'll see a lot of individuals who were arrested after having been charged with or maybe convicted of what would commonly be considered lower-level offenses, and a lot of these collaterals were arrested, individuals with no nexus to the criminal justice system at all.
And you think we'll see that data?
Yeah, I think, look, historically, ICE does release that data, including during the Trump administration. And John, again, it's just very illustrative. If you look at the Trump administration data, in 2019, prior to COVID, they arrested something like 63,000 individuals who were just charged with or convicted of traffic offenses. And the bottom line, John, is, again, there's just not that many of these good targets out there. But really, that raises another question, which is what's next? And you heard Tom Homan say, this is going to continue. We want to continue at this tempo through the full year. And I'm going to be very interested to seeing what type of targeting, who they start prioritizing after they exhaust this criminal population. This part of it, is the low-hanging fruit of the system in a sense, because you can just run these records and get good leads of individuals who've been charged with or convicted of a crime. But that's the natural place you start. The question becomes, what do you do next? And I saw Tom Homan say that we maybe are going to focus on fugitives. But you have to remember, the fugitive in the immigration context is different than the criminal. This is not someone who's been charged with a crime, but someone who's been ordered to leave the United States by an immigration judge and didn't leave. Typically not a criminal population at all.
All right, John Simon, as always, you give us such great information and context. Appreciate your time this morning.
Hi, my name's Barb Graham, and I'm an attorney at Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee in the Refugee and Immigration Services Program.
Bro, okay, this is a random thing, but it is crazy that in Japan, they just don't have like deodorant culture. I feel like it's a wild thing to say, but I don't know. Like, it just, the only deodorant I can find is an Axe deodorant. I don't know if it's just like, I don't know if something is a deodorant. They're not stinky. No, I know. I'm just saying that, like, it's wild that I've talked about this before. I know a lot of Asian people don't have body odor because of like a genetic thing. What's the, yeah, in Europe, it doesn't make sense in Europe. Yeah, it's true. It's like a genetic mutation. That's why, like, Asian people always go, Hasan, that's racist. And then they look it up and they're like, oh shit, that's actually true. No, it's a specific gene. It makes your earwax different too. And you just don't like, you just don't know which is which. I found it in Japan. I mean, I found it too. It's just Axe, which sucks. Yeah, it's connected to the earwax. Babe, are we hitting the streets of Tokyo today? Right now, I'm working with my manager on securing unprecedented access to Tengaland. They have smaller apocrine glands. It's a mutation in the ABCC11 gene. Hold on. No Rexona. Are you going to the Japanese Communist Party headquarters today? No, not today. Last stream, Tengaland. No, it'll be fine. As a Southeast Asian, I can say that this isn't true. Can we do a little eugenics just for that one trait? Yeah. Okay, so here, right now, my management is talking to Tenga, which had invited us to go to Tengaland initially, and I had said that I probably don't want to do that initially. I've realized that it's actually dope. Like, it's actually cool as hell. Oh no, my tincture is already. What is this? I went to the Communist Party headquarters in Paris, France. It was just several very old comrades chatting people up. This is very different in Japan, I think. Can you demo the Tenga products there? Yeah, no. We're getting Team Labs later today as well at night. Will Neff's stream at night is going to be Team Labs. Today we are going to try to go to Tengaland. We're going to do a flower crafting seminar designed by one of the top flower crafters on the planet. Okay. And then after that we're Will Neff stream is later at night. Yes, Tengaland in Harajuku. If you've not heard of Tenga, then we will enlighten you. Tenga is an adult product brand. I'm going to keep doing news until 11 though, so don't worry. You can enter, but you must be over to buy. It must be 18 plus to buy the adult themes on display, including a vending machine selling limited edition Tenga cups. If you're interested in trying Tenga is a sex toy brand. But I am legitimately shocked at how cool some of their products are that are not sex toys. But it is basically something beyond. It is something completely beyond just a sex toy. Like, I'm actually shocked at how much cultural impact this one sex toy has. Okay. I'm literally wearing a Tenga shirt right now. This is one of their products. Last night I went in, I went to a pop-up and I was like, wow, there's some really cool merch here. What is this? And this caught my eye. And then I realized it's literally, it was a pop-up shop for Tenga, which blew my mind. Let me tell you. All right, hold on. Did you get the Suckmaster 9000? No. But let's get back to know your rights if ICE visits your home, U.S. immigration law. Sorry, I just wanted to take a brief aside.
This is a video about knowing your rights if Immigration and Customs Enforcement approaches you.
After that brief aside, back to the harrowing realities of American existence.
All people living in the United States, including undocumented people, have certain rights under our United States Constitution. If you are undocumented, and if an immigration and customs
Sorry to spam, but earlier, didn't you say illegal migration crossing the border illegally is just a civil violation? It led me down a rabbit hole that seems to say it is a crime. Being an undocumented immigrant in the U.S. alone, however, is not. Wait, what? Yeah. What do you think a civil violation is? A civil violation is still a crime. There's a difference between a civil violation and a felony. Yeah. A moving violation is still a crime, right? Like a traffic ticket is still a crime. I think you misunderstood what I was saying. And I don't think you're being disingenuous. It's important to clarify these things. Like, technically, jaywalking is a crime, right? Jaywalking is a crime, but we don't treat it in the same way that we would other crimes because we understand the societal harm or the impact that is being done when someone jaywalks is not, it's not all too significant. Oh, shit. No, it's not. That's why it's civil and not criminal. I thought civil violations were also, I thought you could, a civil violation is still breaking a rule. Driving without a seatbelt is a crime. Also, it doesn't matter. They've changed it anyway. Like, back in the day, it was not considered any sort of, it was just simply considered a civil violation. Now, I think it's like a felony as well if you get deported and then come back in. It's a civil offense, as is going over the speed limit, as is not crossing the border at a point of entry. Yeah. Civil law is separate from crime. There are separate courts for them. I think he means crossing the border is a worse offense than overstaying a visa. Scary shit is that a lot of undocumented workers here are currently wearing ankle monitors like parolees wear, got them at the border when they got processed. Now ICE is just setting them off and scooping people at work. The only types of crimes are felonies and misdemeanors, and a civil violation is not a felony or misdemeanor. Thank you. Hold on. Do you think this will get to the point of arresting legal immigrants and citizens? Not only has it already gotten to the point of detaining U.S. citizens, but yes. Okay. Illegal entry into the United States is a federal crime that often comes with civil penalties. Illegally crossing the border into the United States has many consequences, such as deportation and bans on re-entry into the U.S. Okay. Unlawful entry into the United States means that the person has entered the United States outside of immigration laws that allow legal entrance to the U.S. U.S. unlawful entry is legally called improper entry. Unlawful presence is when a person stays in the U.S. after entering the U.S. unlawfully. You can overstay your visa, or you can remain in the U.S. after improper entry. The majority of the undocumented migrants that are now on U.S. soil year over year are actually visa overstayers, and they're not border crossers. If your visa is expired, you must legally leave the United States. However, there are exceptions to unlawful presence. Speak with your immigration attorney. You were illegally in the U.S. as a minor. You were the victim of abuse or sexual human trafficking. You have evidence showing you applied for an extension of stay in a timely manner. If you are a visa overstayer. Improper entry into the U.S. is a tricky legal situation. The immigration laws outlining improper entry fall under U.S. Code Title 8, Section 1325. They can also be found in the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 275. The most typical depiction of improper entry is the illegal crossing the border at an unguarded border crossing. But there are many ways that a person can face punishment for illegal immigration. A person is considered to have illegally entered the U.S. if they, A, enter at a place without immigration officers present or at a location that is not a designated point of entry. B, enter without being examined or inspected by immigration officers. C, enter based on false or misleading information. Or D, enter while willfully concealing facts or materials. Examples of illegal entry include lying on a visa application or providing false documents or even a fake identification card or a green card. Unlawful entry is a felony, and having a felony offense makes it extremely difficult to legally re-enter the United States. A list of undocumented immigration civil offenses and violation consequences are listed below. And this didn't used to be the case, but it is now. But technically, at least throughout American history, unlawful entry into the United States for the longest time, and then turned into a civil offense, and now is actually, I think it was a misdemeanor maybe, but now it's considered a felony. What about the statute of limitations? I actually don't think there is one. This is just a regular law firm, an immigrant attorney firm. No, not a civil felony. I'm saying it's now considered a felony. Punishments for illegal crossings include criminal penalties for reentry as well as reentry of certain removed people, such as those removed due to a conviction or aggravated felony, misdemeanors, crimes, and felonies that differ from aggravated felony. First punishment for crossing the border illegally is a civil penalty fine of $50 to $250. imprisonment for up to 6 months, or both fines and imprisonment. Okay? So if you're caught crossing the border, your penalty could literally be $50 to $250. Second punishment for crossing the border illegally is a civil penalty fine, imprisonment for up to 2 years, both fines and imprisonment. There's also penalties for improper entry by marriage fraud, penalties for improper entry by entrepreneurship fraud, fraudulently establishing a business to avoid immigration laws. There's reentry with additional crimes. Yes, there is a crime of improper entry under U.S. 1325, which we're looking at, which makes it a misdemeanor to enter the country illegally. But that doesn't apply to visa overstays. And B, the statute of limitations is 5 years, and most undocumented immigrants have been here for 15 plus. Oh, I didn't know that there was a statute of limitation. I'm an immigration attorney. Please, I would like to talk to you about this. Unlawful is its own criminal offense. Is nothing new. Unlawful entry. Ultimately, this would be debate purposive, but the legal language matters. Unlawful versus illegal versus criminal versus civil. And all the differences matter because language is being used to label offenders, but we know they are grabbing everyone. We should all learn the difference, though. To summarize, it is not a crime to be in the U.S. in violation of immigration law. Visa overstays haven't committed any crimes, and the majority of people who did commit a crime when they crossed the border are now over a decade past the time when that offense was prosecutable. The one exception to the above is for individuals previously deported who then re-enter the country illegally. For that group, it is a crime for them simply to be in the U.S., and the statute of limitations does not begin to run until the person comes onto immigration's radar. There is no statute of limitations on this. The defining condition was illegal entry. The crime is remaining. It resets every single day. False. Federal law provides the statute of limitations begin to run when the elements of a crime are completed. For improper entry, the crime is completed after the entry occurs. At that moment, the 5-year statute of limitation begins to run. Here are a pattern of jury instructions for a violation of 8 U.S.C. 1325. The essential elements are: the defendant is an alien. The defendant knowingly entered the U.S. The defendant entered at a place other than a port of entry. There it is. Cookie Monster, our immigration attorney, says, for unlawful entry, you go before a federal criminal court. You don't go to immigration court for that. I know it's confusing. Why are you pretending like statutes of limitation matter? No, they don't. I'm not under the Trump administration. I mean, no laws truly matter under the Trump administration. I'm just simply telling you what the existing laws are. I also don't like even the existing laws are more forgiving than I suspected. I didn't know that there was a statute of limitation of 5 years, for example. But even then, clearly the way that our enforcers interpret / use the existing laws are entirely different than whether these laws are lenient or not. Okay? Obviously, this is being used for pure politics. There's no legitimate reason for it. There's no legitimate reason for this level of apprehension and this level of scrutiny. And it's purely for white nativist, invoking white nativist sentiment and doing PR for this government to make it seem like they're doing a great job taking care of these rugged criminals.
We sometimes think of as being the immigration police. But please understand these rights. You do not have to open the door. You do not have to open the door or let the officers into your home unless they have a valid search warrant signed by a judge.
Yeah.
An ICE deportation warrant is not the same as a search warrant. If this is the only document they have, they cannot legally come inside unless you verbally agree to let them in. If the officers say they have a search warrant signed by a judge, ask them to slide it under the door or to hold it up to a window so you can see it. If the warrant does not have your correct name and address on it, and if it is not signed by a judge, you do not have to open the door or let them inside. If at any point you decide to speak with the officers, you do not need to open the door to speak with them. You can speak with them through the door or step outside and close the door. You have the right to remain silent. You do not need to speak to the immigration officers or answer any questions. If you are asked where you were born or how you entered the United States, you may refuse to answer or remain silent. If you choose to remain silent, say so out loud. You may show a Know Your Rights card to an officer that explains that you will remain silent and wish to speak to a lawyer. You may refuse to show identity documents that say what country you are from. Do not show any false documents and do not lie. You have the right to speak to a lawyer. In custody, you have the right to immediately contact a lawyer, even if you do not have a lawyer, You may tell the immigration officers that you want to speak to one. If you have a lawyer, you have the right to talk to them. If you have a signed form called a G-28, which is a form that shows you have a lawyer, give it to the officer. If you do not have a lawyer, ask an immigration officer for a list of pro bono lawyers. You also have the right to contact your consulate. The consulate may be able to assist you in locating a lawyer. You can refuse to sign any or all paperwork until you've had the opportunity to speak to a lawyer. If you choose to sign something without speaking to a lawyer, be very sure you understand exactly what document says and means before you sign it. If you want more information about your rights or to learn if you might be eligible for immigration benefits or relief, speak to a reputable, competent immigration lawyer. You can go to the American Immigration Lawyers Association to connect with a lawyer in your area.
When you open Google...
Oh,